Well, Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
Everybody's getting settled in here, and welcome to those that are joining us online. It's good to have you all here with us today. And so, for those that are watching, those are going to pick this up on the archive. My name is Pastor John Craig. We're here at Life of Worship in Amarillo, Texas, and this is our weekly Torah portion. It is Achrei Mot and Kedoshim. It's a double, but guess what? We might just be able to get through it all today. We might. And what I don't, then Elias can come up and close it down on the other side. Okay, no pressure, Elias. So anyway, everybody have a good week. Wonderful. Busy. Yeah. Sandi and I got blessed with the Paul Begley conference that's this weekend on climate chaos, and someone blessed us with that. And I've picked up about 3 different shows. Oh my goodness! I look outside right now, and it's so beautiful and nice and calm. And I want you to know, enjoy what we have right now. I'm just saying. Because what lies ahead of us is going to be a ride. It's going to be a ride, to say the least. But anyway, before we get started, let's open up in prayer and ask the Father's blessing on the studies today. Father, we come before you in the name of Yeshua, and we just thank you that we have this opportunity to gather in your name, and to open up your word and have your word speak to us life, the words of life that will flow from your mouth. We ask, Father, that you give us ears to hear and eyes to see that which you've embedded within the scripture, so that we are not only aware of what your word says on the surface, but to dig in to see how it inspires us for life, to be aware of our current place in the timeline of life. And we just want to honor you and bless you in the mighty name of Yeshua. Amen. So you know, it was very interesting that, by the way, I'm saying this as we get started. Mike from around the world was talking, and you've heard me talk about Mike from around the world. Some of y'all listened to him before on Paul Begley. And he basically said that when life began in the garden, we were, in the scheme of things, in the last few minutes. So these 6,000 years have just been the last few minutes before the next upheaval. Because, you know, in the beginning it says that the earth was without form and void. And so there's a cycle of things going on. So everything, when I was thinking about this, everything that's within Scripture is to prophetically prepare us for the days that are ahead, which culminate, you think about all the generations, it culminates in our generation. I believe it's our generation, to bring us to this point of, if we don't get it right, and we have all of the shoulders of every generation before that we're standing upon, the only thing that we have left is destruction. And so when we think about, well, how do you avoid destruction? Well, that's why these 2 Torah portions, I think, really bring this into perspective. Achrei Mot, which is after the death of, and Kedoshim is holiness, or to be set apart, a set apart people. So when you put this about, is what brings about our preservation. It's about living a lifestyle, because Kedoshim really pretty much sums up Achrei Mot. These 2 really do go together, because it's about the protocol of being a set apart people that preserves life from destruction. So we have the protocol of the priests, the Day of Atonement, over in Achrei Mot. Achrei Mot is talking about, specifically, it's picking up from the narrative a little bit after the death of Aaron's sons, and then moving forward, and it talks about the Yom Kippur, the Azazel goats, the sacrifices on that sense. But then it also then goes into the things that make them and us, the priesthood and us being a priesthood, set apart. And so we're going to hit a lot of those different points today, because we're going to talk a little bit about the blood and the relation of the blood with the land, and why any land has the right to spew a people out that are unrighteous, that are not set apart, they're not holy, that there's a relationship that we have with the land that must be preserved. And so those are all some of the points that we are going to be discussing today. And we've got Eddie and Tammy online with us. Shabbat Shalom. It's good to have you online with us, Eddie and Tammy. So good to see you there in the chat room. Okay. So now after I said all that, we're going to skip chapter 16. Because Pastor Sandi, you want to stick around for the message. Pastor Sandi was giving me some highlights of what she was going to be speaking about. And I'm like, I want to know more. She was telling me that. And I was like, I want to know more. And she was giving me some of these highlights, stuff that she was learning on it. It's going to be really, really good. So come back in. Y'all that are with us online, come back for the message part of Life of Worship there on YouTube and on Facebook, and catch us there on the backside after worship. It's going to be a good day. I wanted to say this concerning the Day of Atonement, because I'm not going to touch much on it. But have y'all ever heard of the tradition of tying the rope around the priest's ankle, so when he would go in on the Day of Atonement, if something were to happen, they could get him out?
Yep, they could drag him back out.
They could drag him back out. Well, if you go back to Let Us Reason Together's Torah Portion on Messianic Lamb Radio, Tammy did a really good discussion about that. And because there was a time period that I forget the exact numbers, but it's a huge amount of numbers, that in a period of 280 years or something like that, there were like 281 or 200 and some odd 80 something. Y'all can put it in the notes for me if you want, or there in the comments, that there were that many priests, high priests. In other words, the high priests were dying on a regular basis, about every year. Every year the high priests were dying. Well, why? Because it was during that time period. She brought out the point. It was when they were dealing with the Hellenist influences, and they were doing stuff like offering pigs up on the altar and all sorts of things like that. So the high priests were not set apart. They were not holy. And so when they were going in to take the blood into the Holy of Holies during that time, they weren't making it out.
You would have thought that after the first few priests, they'd start getting right.
Well, I guess they weren't reading their word. And so that's where the tradition came from, tying the rope around the priest's leg, because I wonder when that first couple went in and they didn't come out, how did they get them out?
They didn't.
So they stayed in there. Those bones, did they decay? No one wanted to risk their lives going in if they're not a high priest and it's not on the Day of Atonement at the appointed time, right?
Well,
so
even then, the high priest that goes in can't get them out.
Yeah, so those bones, they just laid there, until the destruction of the temple. It's like, I remember those bones and them bones. Okay, so this is how Yahweh takes it so seriously. But this was in the time of the Second Temple. They didn't even have an Ark of the Covenant in there. There was no furnishings. But it was still the Holy of Holies. And they didn't treat it such. They didn't follow the protocol. So now when you think about this, and if we are priests unto Yahweh, then what does it mean then if we are to live in a manner by which we want to be in his presence? Isn't it amazing that a lot of times say, oh God, let your glory fall, and we don't get zapped? That's mercy. That we treat the grace of God with indifference, thinking that it is a right, as opposed to a privilege. So, Achrei Mot, after the death, as we know how the sons of Aaron treated the holy fire. And there was some protocol that came out. Elias brought that out last week. Things that they didn't do after that point because they wanted to make sure they never jeopardized, one, the presence of God, the sacrifice, the holy things of God, or the temple, or any of that stuff. Became probably some very, very sobering lessons that they had. But what can we learn as we go through the study about the sobering lessons when Yahweh gives us things that we ought to do, or we are commanded to do, shall we say? Or the things that we are commanded not to do, are those because he just wants to handcuff us and tie us? Or is he giving us maybe a look into the protocol of life? So, with that said, let's jump forward into Leviticus and chapter 17. Chapter 17. And Joe's online with us. She says we are in the Hellenistic era again. Isn't that true? Isn't that? It's really true. And I was listening to Dr. Pigeon pontificate on a number of different things that's affecting our culture, which runs completely parallel with this week's Torah portion.
And it's that mixture that we need to be so aware of. It's the mixture.
Yes, exactly right. So Leviticus chapter 17. Is it warm in here to you all? We got the heat on, and it heats up very quickly when it's nice and warm outside. So I'm going to make that adjustment. Oh, you did? You got it on cool now. Okay. I'm good with that. Okay. I was like, where's that voice coming from? You got it. Thank you. Especially in the children's room. Yeah, it's a sauna in there. I just need to add, what do they do in the sauna is they heat it up and they put the water on the hot stones. Yeah, that's what you just need to get. So, okay, where am I at? Protocols. Okay, chapter 17. Will someone read chapter 17 for us?
And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto Aaron and unto his sons, and unto all the children of Israel, and say unto them, This is the thing which the Lord hath commanded, saying, What man soever there be of the house of Israel, that killeth an ox, or lamb, or goat in the camp, or that killeth it out of the camp, and bringeth it in, and bring it not unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, to offer an offering unto the Lord before the tabernacle of the Lord. Blood shall be imputed unto that man. He that shed blood, and that man shall be cut off from among his people. To the end that the children of Israel may bring their sacrifices, which they offer in the open field, even that they may bring them unto the Lord, unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, unto the priest, and offer them for peace offerings unto the Lord. Sorry, I don't have my reading glasses. And the priest shall sprinkle the blood upon the altar of the Lord at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, and burn the fat for a sweet savor unto the Lord. And they shall no more offer their sacrifices unto devils, after whom they have gone a whoring. This shall be a statute forever unto them throughout their generations. And thou shalt say unto them, Whatsoever man there be of the house of Israel, or of the strangers which sojourn among you, that offereth a burnt offering or sacrifice, and bringeth it not unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, to offer it unto the Lord, even that man shall be cut off from among his people. And whatsoever man there be of the house of Israel, or of the strangers that sojourn among you, that eateth any manner of blood, I will even set my face against that soul that eateth blood, and will cut him off from among his people. For the life of the flesh is in the blood, and I have given it to you upon the altar to make an atonement for your souls. For it is the blood that maketh an atonement for the soul. Therefore I say unto the children of Israel, no soul of you shall eat blood, neither shall any stranger that sojourneth among you eat blood. And whatsoever man there be of the children of Israel, or of the strangers that sojourn among you, which hunteth and catcheth any beast or fowl that may be eaten, he shall even pour out the blood thereof, and cover it with dust. For it is the life of all flesh. The blood of it is for the life thereof. Therefore I say unto the children of Israel, ye shall eat the blood of no manner of flesh, for the life of all flesh is the blood thereof. Whosoever eateth it shall be cut off. And every soul that eateth that which died of itself, or that which was torn with beast, whether it be one of your own country, or a stranger, he shall both wash his clothes and bathe himself in water, and be unclean until the evening. Then shall he be.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. Let's stop right there for now. Yeah, thank you. All right, so
That's good.
do y'all see a theme? Because it just came out of the whole element of the Day of Atonement, and which has a lot about blood in it. And now we've got this whole other element dealing with blood. And what is one of the first things that pops out to you in this chapter about the blood?
How do you eat it?
Don't eat it. Yeah. Don't eat the blood. I'm going to put it up here. Okay. Don't eat blood. Why?
And the pagans used to do that a lot, and as part of their ritual to worship the pagan gods is to drink the blood and eat the blood and stuff. So
Okay. So life is in the blood. It's deals with paganism, the idolatry, that type of thing. Okay. Anybody have any other thoughts? Don't eat the blood. No? Okay. No, that pretty much covers it. I was just going to see what anybody else had to say about it. So think about this. The blood of animals carries life. And you know, if you want to look at it this way, the blood of humans carries life, correct? And one of the things that just came out in the news this week, I don't know if y'all heard about it, was about the adrenochrome. I mean, it hit all of the alternative media pretty hard this week. Adrenochrome, and what they came out. Oh, it was on Yana Ben Noon interviewed a lady, and I told Sandi to listen to it, and she got home yesterday and she was boiling mad in righteous indignation, because this is what they're doing. There is a company out there that is harvesting the blood of children, and then they sell that blood to the elite. And depending if it's A quality or B quality, they could be spending anywhere from $1,100 and up per dose. And what they do is they have that blood put into their veins of the children. The children are kept in cages. They're kept in various places like former military bases, deep underground military bunkers, but they are held there captive. And they have a lifespan, and on their paperwork, they list their name, the day they went in, their age, the type of blood that they have, and their termination date. They even have a termination date. It was horrific. It's horrific. This is going on right now in America today. This is what happens to many of our missing children. And if you have children or grandchildren, you make sure that they are completely safe and never, ever out of your sight.
That's right.
Because this is an industry, and it is horrific. It is horrific. And it is a complete abomination unto Yahweh. As we study this out, you're going to see more and understand why. But I wanted to bring this out as why this maybe will get kicked off of YouTube. I don't know, because this is really, really bad. This is really, really bad. And then you think about all of these children that are being smuggled up across the border without parents. They're being put on airplanes, buses, and they're being sent to places all over the country, and they're children. They're children, and there's no tracking on them. There's no tracing. This is U.S. government involved smuggling, not only of just of people that are being put into the slave industry within the United States, but children being put into some type of captive service. Many, I would venture to say, to the point of for their bloodletting. This is more than just the abortion industry, where blood has been poured out upon the ground across this nation. This is taking live babies. This is babies that have had a chance to live and know, and all of a sudden now they've been taken captive. So
You know what I say to that? Bo, Yeshua, and Bo.
yeah, and most
Stop that.
people don't know this, and that's why we talk about stuff here. We don't sweep it under the carpet and think everything's nice. We got to understand. We got to be sober in the day and the hour we're living in, and understand what we are up against. And then how do you fight it? I mean, how do you fight this industry, this secretive industry that is going on? So there's more to that story, and there's more involved. I don't want to detract from much of anything, but see, this relates to paganism right here by taking the blood of children. It is taking our children and passing it through the fires of Molech and offering it up. Why? We've talked about this in the past on this Torah portion, how babies are offered up for the convenience of the parents so they can continue to live their life and have their lifestyle the way they want it. But this takes it to a whole nother level. And this is so that people can have it's not just about taking the blood out of those children. They bring those children to the point of terror. So the adrenaline is released into the blood, and then they harvest the blood.
That's evil.
Okay? It is evil. These are evil practices.
That's why, on the sacrificial system, it specifically says that when you kill animals, it's going to be a kosher kill. The animal does not suffer, because God already knew that whenever there's any kind of fear or suffering by an animal, those things go into the soul, and the soul is what's in the blood. When it says the life is in the blood, the word for life is nefesh.
Yeah.
That's the soul, the living force. That's what they're playing with. That's what these people are doing. They're playing with soul.
Yes.
And that's the abomination right there.
So in verse 13, it says, so when any man from the sons of Israel or from the aliens who sojourn among them in hunting catches a beast or a bird which may be eaten, he shall pour out its blood and cover it with earth. So the blood is even to be respected from that animal, as not to just let it run, but to actually bury it, is what it's basically saying. Yeah, Rick.
We're talking here about the life is in the blood. Also, a big majority of the diseases that he's trying to protect us from right here is in the blood too. If you cook it, you kill those diseases. If you eat or drink the blood, then that goes directly into you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so you can look at this and you can compare it as to saying it gives us a picture of Messiah. And so whether it's a kosher animal that you would get in the wild, or it is a animal that it can be offered up as a sacrifice at the altar, that all gives us a picture of Messiah. And so but I would also say that it also brings in a comparison of that's the blood of Adam is precious. We need to understand there's value in our blood. There's value. I mean, think about this. What do they do today? You can go down and sell your plasma. You can give your blood for the life of somebody else at a blood bank. And so blood is precious, but it also holds the life source And when one gets blood through a transfusion, then one is, no. Check the door, because it's 214 area code. It's probably just a robocall. But so the preciousness of the blood is, you're going to get somebody else's life source if you get a transfusion and everything that's been connected with that person. Because the very things that one experiences within the soul is captured in the blood. So I remember Rick was telling us about that. I'll tell you, yeah, Rick Tree Size was telling about the effects of getting blood transfusions.
And also, like I've heard people who get kidney transplants or part of a liver or a heart, they'll all of a sudden, they had ate chicken nuggets and all of a sudden they loved chicken nuggets, and it turns out that the donor was a chicken McNugget fanatic or whatever. So it's like they end up taking on the characteristics of the donor of the organ.
Interesting. And then I would have to say that is all embedded in the genetics, in the genes. And therefore, if you're messing with the life, if you're taking on the life, if you by drinking the blood, you're taking on the life of that, then you're getting a genetic manipulation going on within your body. So therefore, each one of us individually, uniquely made, now are individually, uniquely being transformed. And, we don't want to mess with God's creation, right? Would you, I mean, I'm taking it out a little bit further, but thinking about this through, there could be some type of connections to why all this is true. Yahweh wants to keep us pure in our generations, such as Noah's family. And that's why they were preserved from the destruction that came upon the earth, which, by the way, I'm going to go back to that. In the genetic connection is why were they preserved? Because they were pure in their generations. But what was going on? Destruction. If you look at the day of Noah, the great turmoil that came upon the earth, there's a connection with what's the great turmoil and destruction that's coming on the earth here in the future. So there's all of these layers are all added together, and they're all part of this. Okay. All right. So life is in the blood. Without the blood of Messiah, we have no life. So there's another part. Now, Rick, you brought up the connection of the pagan practices. And so eating blood was a pagan practice of fertility worship rites. And of course, an abomination in the eyes of Yahweh. So when they had the pagan practices at every high place, so in the land or not in the land or whatever, it was generally accompanied by a sacrifice that would be brought to the pagan temples. So there would be the letting of the blood of the animal, and then it would be followed up with some type of fertility ritual or the conjugation between the offerer and a temple prostitute. It was all part of the practice there. So Yahweh was saying, hey, you're coming from where? Right now we get this word. It was being written to the people. Where were the people? In the wilderness, right? Where had they come from? Egypt. So they're saying, don't do the practices of the Egyptians. And what was he also telling them? You're getting ready to enter into a land and take that land because they've been doing these practices. So when you get there, don't do what they're doing, because the very things that they're doing, the land will spew them out of its mouth. So they're going to be vomited out. But if you participate in it, you too will be vomited out of the land. Yes, sir.
That when you were talking about the defiled land?
The defiled land?
Yeah, where they were doing human sacrifices.
Yeah, see? It does. That's right. It defiles the land. Ever wonder why there's not a Mayan culture? the Mayan civilization, it's like, it's just poof, it's gone. Completely wiped off the face of the earth. There might be some that have a Mayan connection through their genes, but their culture is gone. Completely destroyed. Why? Because of human sacrifice.
They are in the process of reinstating that in California. The California legislation has decided that it's going to be all right to learn the Mayan ways and the Mayan chants and everything, and they're going to be doing that in school.
Yeah. Yep. One of the most brutal games that they used to have, it was like the Coliseum games, except in a different way, is where they would take, I guess it was a ball, and they had to take that ball and score it through a hoop. And if you missed, it was off for the head. If you were the losing team, it was off for the head. I mean, it was very brutal. It was a live or die situation. And the only thing I could say is you better be good if you're going to enter into that arena. I remember going to Chichen Itza there in the Yucatan Peninsula, and going into that arena and looking how it was all set up. It was just completely eerie, even centuries after they did those games, knowing that was a place that was it was fought for their very life, or so that they wouldn't die.
Full of spectators, right?
Full of spectators. Yeah. So in ancient times, meat was mainly eaten on special occasions and celebrations. So think about this. Who likes a good steak? How about some good chicken? Little pigeon on the side? No, maybe not. All right. So,
Quail. You see quail.
Quail. Okay. The quail, a little quail on the side. Quail's good. Yeah. So it was a time where we gather together, you have a backyard barbecue, whatever it might be, time of great hospitality. So, but in all honesty, they didn't eat meat usually. They ate other things, beans and vegetables and that type of stuff, because it was on the celebrations is when they would have the meat. So we know, biblically speaking, in the cycle of the feast, 7 times a year, it was a good time, 6 times a year, good time to go up to Jerusalem and have a good barbecue, a good time to get together with friends and family and celebrate and that type of stuff, and get some lamb and maybe a little bit of goat and whatever else is on the barbie. Those are just things that they would do. But so it wasn't really a common practice. So why does it say that? I mean, it gives us that question. Any man from the house of Israel who slaughters an ox or a lamb or a goat in the camp, or who slaughters it outside the camp and has not brought it to the doorway of the tent of meeting to present it as an offering to Yahweh, blood guiltiness is to be reckoned to that man. He has shed blood, and that man shall be cut off from among his people. That's a pretty serious situation. But what was the common practice of the people living in the land? It's because they were slaughtering every time. If you consider this, when they slaughtered, it was a part of an offering. So when it was a part of an offering, then for who was it to? It was to some god that was in the land. And so it was a sacrifice being offered up. Now, what happens when we sit down and we have a meal? What do? We give thanks, right? We offer up that meal and we say, thank you, Father, for providing this for us. And we are offering our thanks for that meal. And so when we're eating that meat, it is honestly a time that we're saying that this table that we're sitting is a sacred place. It's a holy place, a place that's set apart, and therefore it's not going to be defiled with anything that Yahweh says is defiling. Unfortunately, in much of the world, what goes on those tables, which the table is an altar. It's an extension of an altar that's at a pagan temple. And so what goes on that table oftentimes is unclean. And as Joe had said earlier in the notes, it speaks about that we are living in a Hellenistic time, right? That's why we got to get rid of that Greek thinking. But yeah,
So really, in essence, when we sit down to eat meat, we're not sacrificing. It's almost a sacrifice God's given us to enjoy. See what I'm saying? If we sacrificed and then ate it,
mm-hmm.
that's the abomination of it. But when we buy meat now, we don't go and kill a cow.
Right.
But we wouldn't be sacrificing the cow if we were trying to eat it.
Right.
We're slaughtering the cow. We put it on the altar of the table, and we give thanks to God for providing it for us. It's almost like He provides it. He's giving us the food.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So that's why we offer up our thanksgiving to Him. Yeah. Okay. Joy.
So when I read this, I think it said that you are not to take it to the field and sacrifice it out on the way, right? Isn't that in here?
Yeah. So think about it.
So
Yeah.
what I'm thinking is that his altar is important. He wants his sacrifices on that altar, not out in the field somewhere or in somebody's backyard. So it's got to do with that altar, and that altar is clean and been purified by the blood and the red heifer and all that, right? Is that right?
Yeah.
So that's part of it too, I think, is because they probably just did it anywhere. They didn't.
Take it to
No respect.
Yeah, taking it to a clean place. Again, then you have to understand what's clean and not clean. And that's one of the significant elements there. If we're not taught what's clean and unclean,
Yeah.
we'll be participating in things that defile us. And we're going to hit some of these points. There's some over in 1 Corinthians. We're going to get over there in a second. So eating blood. Anybody else have a comment? So eating blood defiles us, and the temple of the Holy Spirit, the temple of Elohim. So we don't want to bring something into our bodies as we wouldn't want to bring it into the temple and defile the altar. We don't want to defile this altar that's within us. And if we do, then we'll be cut off. And this is what Ezekiel, if you want to go over to Ezekiel 33, 24 to 26. Does someone want to read that? 33. You got it.
I got tabs on my Bible.
Hey.
I'm so excited.
Oh, awesome.
Okay, what were the verses?
24 to 26. Someone read that. Ezekiel 33, 24 to 26.
I'll read it. Human being, those living in the desolate parts of the land of Israel are saying, Abraham was only one and he inherited the land. But we are many, so how much more is the land given to us to inherit? Therefore tell them that Yahweh Elohim says, you eat flesh with the blood, you raise your eyes to your idols, and you shed blood. And you will expect to possess the land? You depend on your swords, you commit disgusting practices, and each of you defiles his neighbor's wife. And you still expect to possess the land? Tell them that Yahweh Elohim swears, as I live, those living in the ruins will fall by the sword. Those in the countryside I will give to the wild animals to eat, and those in the fortress and caves will die of the plague.
All right. So do you think God takes it seriously?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so eating blood not only contaminates our temple, it restricts the blessing of Yah. So I was just thinking about this. I mean, how many people had seen those YouTube videos of some of those Muslim mercenaries that would, when they captured an enemy and then they cut that enemy open and ate his heart? Did anybody ever see any of those? Well, you probably don't want to see those. So But that's what they, that's often what the warriors would do to take on the life source of those who that were respected, respected warrior in battle, so they conquered somebody. And so it was a point of showing them that they had conquered their enemy, but it was by eating their heart was to respect the warrior within that person and to take on their capabilities upon themselves. I mean, it's all kind of grotesque in my opinion, but let's look at 1 Corinthians 10. 1 Corinthians 10, 16 to 31.
The cup of blessing which we bless, is it not the communion of the blood of Messiah? The bread which we break, is it not the communion of the body of Messiah? For we, though many, are one bread and one body, for we all partake of that one bread. Observe, Israel, after the flesh. Are not those who eat of the sacrifices partakers of the altar? What am I saying then? That an idol is anything, or that it is offered to idols, or what is offered to idols is anything? Rather, that the things which the Gentiles sacrifice, they sacrifice to demons and not to God. And I do not want you to have fellowship with demons. You cannot drink the cup of the Lord and the cup of demons. You cannot partake of the Lord's table and of the table of demons. Or do we provoke the Lord to jealousy? Are we stronger than he? All things are lawful for me, but not all things are helpful. All things are lawful for me, but not all things edify. Let no one seek his own, but each one the other's well-being. Eat whatever is sold in the meat market, asking no questions for conscience sake. For the earth is the Lord's and all its fullness. If any of those who do not believe invite you to dinner, and you desire to go, eat whatever is set before you, asking no questions for conscience sake. But if anyone says to you, this was offered to idols, do not eat it, for the sake of the one who told you, and for conscience sake. For the earth is the Lord's and all its fullness. Conscience, I say, not your own, but that of the other. For why is my liberty judged by another man's conscience? But if I partake with things, why am I evil spoken of for the good over which I give thanks? Therefore, whether you eat or drink or whatever you do, do all to the glory of God.
Okay, so he starts talking about a particular table to eat at there. Of course, we know Paul Shaul is a rabbi, taught in the school of Gamaliel. So out of the best of the best. So he knows the protocol. And so which table is he talking about at first?
Passover table.
Yeah, Passover. So we have Passover or Pesach. And specifically, what's he talking about at Passover?
Cup of blessing.
The cup of blessing, right.
Does it say that?
And so we know that we've got the different cups, and the cups represent blood. And so when we take of that cup, we want to make sure that we are participating with a pure heart, Kedoshim, as one is set apart, and so that we will have blessings come upon us, because if we do it in a way that is not pure, then Paul gives a warning later on. That's why some are sick or dead among you, basically, is what he's saying. So that's why we have to watch out that. But there's a comparison that's going on in this scripture, and it has to do with, and he doesn't come quite right out and say it, but he's talking about eating at a table of demons. So because a lot of times someone might just look at it and say, well, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to eat this food that's in front of me. Do I eat this food, and is it sacrificed to idols or not? That type of thing. We have something it's a compare and contrast situation, because think about the audience that's being written to, the people at Corinth. Corinth was like, it was a top trading port in the Mediterranean. And so you had all sorts of people coming into that port, bringing all sorts of practices that were with them. They had I don't remember which temple was specifically the biggest temple of the area, but we have all sorts of pagan practices. You have people that are being raised in this environment. It's normal life. Like living in America. Well, before you came into the Hebraic roots of your faith, what was your normal life every year? What celebrations did you celebrate? What holidays did you keep? Okay, so we have this compare and contrast of other special days, Easter, and there is which has a table, and on that table is generally a ham. There's Christmas, special holy day. On that table is often a ham or a turkey, which is clean, maybe something else. What was that? Tamales. Okay, so we have this part here, and then we have these that are over here. We have two different tables. So, because remember, we're talking about when you ate meat in that culture, it was during when? During celebrations, when people got together. And so we're talking about Passover, then you want to treat it accordingly. And generally at Passover, it's a celebration, right? It's a great celebration. It's not only do we have the Seder and the Haggadah, the telling of the story of the great Exodus, but it is also time that you share a wonderful meal together. But then over here, it's a comparison. Sitting down at the table of demons, Ishtar, Christmas that shares the holiday with 30, is it like 25 or 30 other pagan gods? What is it?
Well, actually, Christmas is attached to Molech because of Santa, but it's also attached to Asherah.
Yeah, so they have all these connections, but I think they said there's like 20, at some point in time I studied way back in the past, like 25 other pagan gods have the same birthday. And then they put Yeshua on there. It's like they tagged him on the end. I mean, that's kind of crazy. Now, if someone didn't read their history, or shall we say we have mixture. We have mixture. We'll get into mixture here in a second.
And the Passover meal, it's a covenant. It's a covenantal meal.
Okay. Yeah, really good point. So when you bring that out, were these covenant meals?
Well,
Not with Yahweh, but with other pagan gods, right? And so there's a distinction. But what was happening in Corinth? They were going to Pesach, and then they were going to these other holidays because it was part of the culture. Oh, let's just do a little bit of the Hebrew roots thing, and let's keep doing the other pagan holidays too. I mean, after all, mom and dad are still doing this, and so I want to be with the family during those holidays. So I'm going to go share at their table and share at down at the local congregation at that one. The sharing of the tables together is a mixture. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, I know the answer to that, but I had some people ask me that. Well, what if we just go for the meal and we're not celebrating the stuff? I said, well, it's the same thing, ain't it?
Yeah, any sharing of a meal is a covenant.
So you put, yeah. Go ahead, Elias. I didn't mean to cut you off.
So, if you participate in the Passover covenantal meal and then you go share another meal unto Easter, that's mixing. That's two covenants you're mixing them. And that's the problem.
I have
Yeah.
a question.
Yeah.
For example, okay, because we had a discussion.
We do Passover, right, this year, but say for an example, I was gonna get partaker or anything like that, but say my family wants to do a barbecue, but they don't do the whole Easter egg hunting and stuff like that, but just a barbecue. Would that be wrong?
To celebrate what day?
Wait till the Easter.
At the
See?
covenantal meal.
Yeah, see, because you think in mind, those days are celebration days, so it's a good time to gather friends and family together on that day. And that's the point of sharing between two, sharing a table with Elohim and a table with demons.
So even if it's on that holiday reality, even though you're not doing the whole rest of the thing, but just sharing. Okay.
Because it's associated with the day.
Yeah.
Now, eating a meal, it's okay to eat, but to gather, that's a celebration. Yeah, Jack.
So basically what Paul is saying, hey, come over this weekend and we're gonna barbecue. Cool? But if it was on a day that we knew we will celebrate, uncool.
Yeah.
Or if
That's
it's,
basically what he's saying.
or if it's dedicated to any one of their festival gods or
Right.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, the goddess that was prominent in Corinth was Aphrodite.
Aphrodite.
And
Okay.
they had Corinth was the largest temple, and it had 1,000 temple prostitutes. So you can kind of see how it was back then. This is just one of the main things that they had.
That's a busy temple.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
There's a lot of traffic going through there.
Not the good kind.
Yeah.
Golly.
And see, and notice how that was specifically related to fertility.
She was the goddess of love and beauty.
And what would they do with those babies that were in the inception of those babies?
We were entered into a fire.
They are often sacrificed.
Or there's a lot of them, they just took babies and put it on their arms like this, and it was hot.
Yeah, yeah. For those who are watching, just holding our arms out like this, that Molech god would put it on that. They'd fry that baby in the hot arms of the Molech, because they'd heat up that Molech statue and they stick it on there, and the parents would walk away. They would just give up their babies, just like
The
that.
drums were so loud they couldn't hear the babies cry.
Yeah, the rhythmic beating of the drums and all of that. Yeah, which actually brings a certain mindset. You actually don't think straight. It's all part of the ceremony. Yeah. Passover.
Straight watching them burn away.
So the other side of it is, it also brings us to the point too is, and we've talked about it here, but it's worth bringing up again, is when you go to the store and you buy that package of ground beef, you need to look on that package to see if it has halal on it. If it's halal,
What's that?
which it means it has been offered by a Muslim cleric.
Oh,
It's been offered. In other words, that Muslim cleric says, yeah, it's been slaughtered in a way we approve. He puts his blessing on it. So now it's halal. So you have to be careful, because I've been down at United and pulled up a package of the organic beef.
Yeah, that's what it is.
And you have to, some of it, I think there was a couple different, one doesn't have it on and one does.
So it actually says it on the package.
Yeah, it says halal.
Say hello.
Hmm. It'll have Arabic writing on it.
If you do lamb is really big. It's hard to find lamb packaged that way. It does not have that on it.
It's getting hard to find ground meat like that too.
Yes.
I did not even know that.
Yeah.
So
So-
I'm just the one that they package, it's not on there. You know, the one that they package at the stores. Well, how would you know?
Well, and here it comes down to an issue of conscience. If you don't know, then you don't know, and you go on and you bless it and you get offer thanks for the meal. That's what he's saying.
Yeah.
Now,
But-
Paul is saying that,
But if you
don't
know-
ask.
Yeah.
You know, if you're being fed, don't, hey, is this, you doing this for this?
Yeah.
You know, just eat it. You're not told. You're not guilty.
Yeah, that's part of
There's
it.
a whole new meaning to that scripture, because when we first started believing the way we believe, when we stopped doing like the pork, we thought it meant like if you go to someone's house and they serve you pork and you didn't know, it was, don't question it, is what we thought. But this
Back
is,
then, not
yeah.
first.
But
Back then at
now,
first, right.
This just kind of opened my eyes to something else. It's
Mhm.
like, oh,
Yeah, because you look at it this way, we know that pork's not food.
Right.
yeah.
So we wouldn't eat pork, even if someone served it. What we always tell people is like, if we don't know somebody, we just tell them we don't eat pork. We don't eat pig. So, they're going to invite us over. But, of course, we don't get invited over anywhere. But when we do get invited over, everybody eats kosher. So everybody eats clean. And so we don't have to worry about it. But we do, need to be aware that, maybe there's a work gathering or something like that. And they're out there and they're grilling hot dogs. Well, are those beef? Or are those pork?
And
Or are they a
even
mixture?
for beef,
Or
do they
lasagna?
have
Or
the-
Italian sausage or something like that? Meatballs. Hamburgers at certain restaurants, you need to check to see if it's 100% beef or they put pork in that beef, in their meatloaf. You have to be careful. Yeah.
I did that the other day at Wiener Schnitzel, and they said it's of your choice. They have beef and pork, and something else. We had to request, all beef. I like
I've never been there because I was afraid of.
But see, we found out also that even with all beef, like hot dogs or smoked sausage, you have to still read because unless it says collagen casing, it's going to have a pork casing on it
Yeah,
as well.
you do.
Well,
You
there's
have,
some without pork.
Yeah, I know, but you got to be. Yeah.
You have to-
Because even though Sonic and Wiener Schnitzel or whoever
Yeah.
serves 100% beef, it may have that pork casing on the outside.
and then Joe online says that you have to keep an eye on Tyson chicken.
What?
You got to pay attention to Tyson chicken. And
For the blessing.
yeah, you just got to look for that. See if make sure it doesn't have the Hallel symbol on it.
Even some of your baby formulas have the.
What is the halal symbol? Like,
It'll say it. It'll say Hallel.
Oh,
And then it'll have Muslim writing.
I've never even seen that one yet, though.
Yeah.
I'll bring you a formula can if you're here Monday.
How many of you know what Hallel is? What does that mean?
The animal is tortured before it's killed.
No.
I don't know when you.
Hallel is the kosher symbol for Islam. They eat kosher too. But it's a Muslim cleric that declares it halal instead of kosher. But what does the Bible say about halal? I'm going to read it to you, okay? It's in Isaiah chapter 14, verse 12. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Hallel? Your Bible might say Lucifer, but that's a false translation. That's from Latin.
Mm.
It says Hallel, son of the morning.
You said 14:12?
Yes.
14:12. Het Yo Lamed Lamed, Hallel. So it's not no coincidence that Islam uses this word to kosher and pray over their kosher food. And they put the name, but Satan has a name. His name isn't Satan, that's what he does. Okay, Lucifer is not his name. Lucifer is Latin for Hallel. Okay, so now you know when you see that Hallel symbol, what that name stands for. The fallen one. Okay.
Another thing is that Hallel, Islam, they believe anything that comes from the sea is kosher. So they'll eat shrimp and lobster, crabs, whatever. To them, that's all kosher. Where, we go by what the Torah says. But if it's from the sea, it's okay.
So basically, they just don't eat pork.
Yeah, it's
Well,
pork.
they follow a lot of the same kosher laws.
Yeah.
They do.
Yeah. They follow the Mosaic kosher laws.
So Eddie here online says Hallel does not drain the blood.
Yeah.
So Yeah. So anyway, ugh. That's all I could say. Ugh.
Animalistic characteristics.
Are we ever gonna get to meet them too? I love listening to them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Are we ever gonna get to meet
Well,
them?
we've invited them to come to Sukkot, so
Well,
so we would love
tell
for them.
to come up from Florida. Then.
All right, there you go, Eddie and Tammy. You've been invited by somebody else other than Sandy and I to come up from from Florida and join us for Sukkot. All right. So there is something else that's on here. Let's go ahead and jump to it. I think I have it later on in my notes, but this is a tie-in to what happened in Acts chapter 15. So if y'all want to go with me over to Acts chapter 15. This actually, I think, is really connected more to Kedoshim, but it's okay to bring it in right now. Acts chapter 15.
Where are we going? I'm sorry, Acts chapter 15, sorry.
Yep, Acts 15, verses 19 through 21. Someone want to read that?
I will. Therefore, my opinion is that we should not put obstacles in the way of the Gentiles who are turning to God. Instead, we should write them a letter telling them to abstain from things polluted by idols, from fornication, from what is strangled, and from blood. For from the earliest times, Moshe has had in every city those who proclaim him, with his words being read in the synagogues every Shabbat.
There you go. Yeah. So the tie-in right there is that, so what was it about the early believers? Is that they were coming to Yeshua, and so they were being brought back into the faith, and they didn't know all the customs of the Jews. So there's a distinction. These are, so who's speaking here? Well, James, the brother of Yeshua, who is the leader over the assembly in Jerusalem. And he's basically just saying, guys, these guys are brand new. We can't expect them to take on all of our customs that we grew up with. That's just our second nature. But here's the heart of it.
This is starting point.
Here's the heart. This is what keeps them, this will make them separate. The rest they're going to get when they study the Torah portion, when they study Moses every Shabbat. And so
accept them as they are, bring them in as they are, and let them grow.
Yeah. And they're not, and here's another thing that is contrasting with what was said earlier, and where you have these those that have come into the faith, but they're Pharisees, and they're like, well, they need to do everything that we do right now. I mean, we need to be the Torah police and get on their case.
Torah Nazis.
Yeah, Torah Nazis. So anyway, if you think that's like, man, there's so much to learn, that's why we study these things out and we bring them out and we say, okay, how do we do that? How do we live this out? How do we separate ourselves out? Now, these two Torah portions, especially Kedoshim, Achrei Mot, and actually last week's too, we were talking, it was a couple weeks ago, the belly of the Torah was that chapter 15? Where was that at? We were talking about the belly. Chapter 14, chapter 13, chapter 11. Yeah, so we have that. These portions right here that we're talking about are called the heart of the Torah. These are the things that we're talking about. They're dealing with the blood. They're dealing with morality. They're dealing with how we treat the blood, the treatment of the animals, the treatment with one another. All of everything that's in the Torah, from Genesis through Deuteronomy, right here is where it all boils down to. This is the very heart. These are the things that change the heart. That's why over in Acts 15, he says, do these 4 things, 1, 2, 3, 4, because this is the heart of the Torah. Well, this is where it's coming from. This is the very heart. And by out of it is the expression of our lives saying, I want to follow Yeshua in his footsteps. And this is my starting point. This is how I'm going to do it. So we get a lifestyle change, but we also get a spiritual change And there's a spiritual and a heart connection right here from these Torah portions.
Yeah, and these are also called the 4 essentials for a new believer in order to fellowship with a mature believer. So if it's a new believer, he had to learn these 4 essentials and be taught these 4 essentials. And the first one, it says there, abstain from pollutions to idols, idolatry. He had to learn proper worship. That's the key. That's what that's teaching, proper worship. The other thing is what's detestable to God, the detestable things. And that's when all this is in Leviticus. The other thing is a kosher diet. What is God says is clean to eat. And then the last thing is sexual relations. What's proper sexual relations? That's what fornication deals with. Where is that taught? In our Torah portion today. So all these things are the essentials for a Gentile who's a new believer coming into the faith to fellowship with mature believers. Because if he does not understand these things, then he's going to come in as an idolater, as a blood drinker, and things like that will infect the assembly. Will infect the assembly.
I'm going to try to draw a picture here.
I have a question though. You said something about the heart of
That's not
Torah. Was that?
I'm trying to draw it in
Today's
me.
portion? Where does the
So
heart?
it's the whole
Or just the whole book?
Leviticus.
Okay.
And the reason they say that is because the first word of Leviticus in Hebrew
This
is
lab, I knew that.
Vayikra, and the last word is Israel. So Lamet Bet is left, heart.
Nice.
So this is supposed to be a DNA strand.
Okay, cute.
All right, this was all right. You see that?
I can see that.
The tapeworm,
Looks like a ladder.
the twisted ladder, or something like that, rope ladder. Okay, so think about this. This goes back to who we've been created to be, and how we connect. How is our DNA connecting in a right way or in a wrong way?
Well, it depends.
Because
Vaccination.
if we do things in life the right way, we keep our DNA pure. In other words, if our relationships with one another, and we keep ourselves for marriage, we don't eat the blood of animals or of people or that type of thing. We're not putting other things in our body that we shouldn't be putting in our body. Then we're going to keep our DNA pure. But once we pollute our DNA and it starts to break it down and insert something else into that, and it begins to get messed up, then our body begins to break down and we no longer have the blessing of life. And when you eat pork, it's right, and it also, with that destruction of life, means this destruction of health. It means broken DNA gets passed down to the generations. So we have it's a very sobering responsibility, because how many times do we say, well, I'm dealing with something that's been in my family line for 3 generations. So, and in the middle of that DNA is the memories of the prior generation. The mRNA is an operating system that has the ability to remove memories and insert new memories. Isn't that interesting? So it's, in other words, it's taken someone's genetic history and removing it. I believe embedded in our DNA, they say that because I was reading an article, it's blowing me away. This stuff is outside of my realm of understanding. There's not enough storage space in the cloud, in offsite servers, and people's computer systems shared around the world to contain all the information that is coming. Every 11 hours, knowledge is doubling. Every 11 hours. They need storage space.
So there's
And-
7 people.
And so these inoculations have the ability to store information embedded that you will never know, but because it's communicating with the 5G, 6G systems, you're now part of a huge operating system of storage.
The true World Wide Web.
The true World Wide Web. Everybody's interconnected. And that is controlled by artificial intelligence. And it,
Yeah, so like the commandment is you shall not eat the blood. But if you look at spiritually, yes, you do not eat blood, but you also do not mix the blood. And that's what an injection does. An injection that goes into your body is mixing something into your blood, into your soul. Okay, so that's the other issue spiritually that we have to think about. What's being mixed into your soul?
yeah. And you've heard that that most vaccinations out there they use aborted baby cells.
Supposedly from the 1960s.
So in other words, they're mixing genetic code into the inoculation that becomes part of one's body. So that's not how it's supposed to work. If DNA is to be mixed, it's through a husband and wife, and it comes out as a child. But something else is being birthed within a person and changing them. Yes, ma'am.
I heard on the news, I don't know if you've heard this as well, but not only is it the baby DNA, but they're using monkeys. Did y'all know about that? That's
Oh,
So they can prove
if we get there, I have some things to talk about. But
Well, there's a new human monkey hybrid that has been created, and I've seen like 3 different sources from that.
Yeah, that's all sacrifice unto demons. That's
Yeah.
what that man begins to mix. That's sacrifice unto demons. That's what that tells you. That's idolatry. And you'll be cut off for that mixture, or delving into that.
Look what he did to the mixture of the fallen angels, son of flood.
It's the mixing of God's wisdom with demonic wisdom. Let's put it that way.
so Leviticus 17:11. Let's go back to that one. Let's read on that. 17:11.
For the life of a creature is in the blood, and I have given it to you on the altar to make atonement for yourselves, for it is the blood that makes atonement because of the life. This is why I told the people of Israel, none of you is to eat blood, nor is any foreigner living with you to eat blood.
Okay, so here the word blood is the Hebrew word dam. Dam. And it means blood, blood guiltiness, and bloodshed. So you can see, you can take this and you can take it to another level. Bloodshed. We're not supposed to shed another person's blood because that would be murder, right? So it's made up of the dalet and the mem. And the dalet speaks of the tent door, which is basically like a fabric that's hanging down that moves back and forth. And the mem speaks as like a picture of water. So it's like this in the Paleo Hebrew. So you got the dalet and the mem. And isn't it interesting how the M is kind of similar to the Paleo? It's just kind of interesting. But so the dalet and the mem, so it speaks of something that flows back and forth. So that's the picture of blood that flows. Think about blood. It is something that flows in the body. If blood is not flowing in your body, it means what?
You're dead.
You're dead. It's not circulating. Right. So
But it was also considered like sacred too, because you know, if it's the life, you know, life is sacred.
So it's life and it's live. It's live. It's representing something that is alive.
Well, it also represents the blood over the door.
It does, right. Now, look at the similarity here. Look at the similarity. Dam. So we have the Aleph, the Dalet, and the Mem. And so isn't it interesting that man is made up of blood? Or Aleph, the strong one or the leader, has blood in him. And so that's what makes man. But if you, another word for Adam is what? Red. So we have a picture of strength, or we also get out of this picture the picture of the red heifer, which was, you know, the sacrifice that's made for the cleansing of the temple and of the priests, the furnishings and the appliances and all of that, and the altar, all of those things. And what's also very interesting, there's one other word I want to bring into it, and it's very similar, and it is Adamah. Anybody have any idea what that is? This means land. So we have a picture that comes out of these Torah portions that's talking a lot about the blood, because it's about our relationship as man to the blood. But Adam also means dust or dirt, which relates to Adamah, which is the land. So when a land becomes defiled, when the land becomes defiled by the Adam, then the land has a right to vomit man out. And often is because it's the defilement of the blood. What I'm going to say is because blood has defiled the land. The blood of the innocent, and think about this, when an animal is brought, what makes an animal the right animal for the altar? It's innocent, without spot, without blemish. It is a perfect sacrifice. So therefore, and it is brought for the sacrifice as one which represents innocence. So in exchange for someone, for their blood guiltiness, the animal is laid upon the altar, and their blood is shed on behalf of the guilty. And so where we have blood guiltiness, and blood shed, there's a U in there, blood guiltiness.
The land vomiting, and that's what happened to Adam and Eve. The Garden of Eden was vomited them out.
Yeah, so go to chapter 18, verse 28. You can start in 27. Someone read that. 27 and 28.
For all these things were done by the people who lived in the land before you, and the land became defiled. And if you defile the land, it will vomit you out as it vomited out the nations that were before you.
Go ahead and read 29 and 32.
Everyone who does any of these detestable things, such persons must be cut off from their people. Keep my requirements and do not follow any of the detestable customs that were practiced before you came, and do not defile yourselves with them. I am the Lord God.
Okay, so 4 things that are detestable before Yahweh that we see over in Acts 15. What were they? Fornication, sacrificing idols, drinking blood, sexual immorality, and eating strangled animals. I guess some of this fits in there somewhere. Maybe I'm mixing, but let's look at something else that's very interesting, because among believers today, there's an actual verse in Revelation that connects this all together, and that's in Revelation chapter 3. If you want to go there with me. In the message to the assembly of Laodicea, read somebody read 14 through 16. Oh no, why don't you read 17 too? 14 through 17.
And unto the angel of the church of Laodicea, right? These things saith thee, Amen, the faithful and the true witness, the beginning of the creation of God. I know thy works, that thou art neither cold nor hot. I would thou wert cold or hot. So then, because thou art lukewarm and neither cold nor hot, I will spew thee out of my mouth. Because thou sayest, I am rich, and increased with goods, and have need of nothing, and knowest not that thou art wretched, and miserable, and poor, and blind, and naked.
Okay. I just want to say this. When we read that just to me is like, wow, that's the picture of our culture right there. America, isn't it? So the connection of a people that are holy and that are set apart is connected to these things. And if we're not, then we are guilty of bloodshed. And therefore the land has a right to vomit us out, to spew us out. But according to Revelation chapter 3, what does it say that we are if we're going to be spewed out? Lukewarm. So, to me,
So it's one thing to be cold, it's one thing to be hot, but to be lukewarm.
okay,
Lukewarm is kind of a mix.
It-
Cold and hot.
it's a mixture between cold and hot. And I have a thought. I'm going to put it in a different color. This is just a thought. Oops, that's supposed to be an A. Writing it kind of at a different apathy.
Oh.
Or you might say indifference to the things of God, apathetic to the things of God. Just a ho-hum, we'll fit everything into our life, but don't mess up my lifestyle. I'm not going to stand for that which is, somebody else can stand up for what's right. I'm just going to take care of my family. Someone else can deal with the wrongs in society, but I'm just going to take care of my family. I don't really feel like I have a way to say anything or do anything. Therefore, I'm just going to take care of my life and my family. I don't have a voice big enough for anybody to hear. Therefore, I'm just going to take care of my own business. I don't have a say within the churches of America or what's coming out of those pulpits. So I'm just going to deal with my own little different way. All of these different things are saying none of this I have any power over, can do anything about. Is another way of saying I'm apathetic towards it and indifferent, and so I may not like it, but I don't have any power over it. In essence, that's apathetic and not standing for what is right. So
Are we supposed to be about our Father's business?
we are supposed to be about our Father's business.
Or in athletic?
Remember that Laodicea is also speaking to the believers. This isn't about unbelievers. This is to the
This
believers.
is the ones that are out there. Oh, just pray to the Lord and He'll take care of everything. But then yet you're behind your closed doors doing abominations.
How about this statistic right
I
here?
mean, I was thinking hypocrisy a while ago.
Right here. I'm going to stick it right here. 52%. 52% of all who call themselves believers in America, 52% of the people that call themselves believers in Yeshua the Messiah, in Jesus Christ, in America, 52% will not vote for a candidate other than one who will, for the one subject, one issue alone, is that they have to be pro-choice. 52% of everybody that calls themselves, I don't care if that congressman of that official is corrupt, they're evil, they've committed murders and thefts and all that sort of stuff, unless they are pro-choice, I will not vote for them. 52% of believers
Yeah, that's believers.
in America. If you look at a legal term that's called, there's two different legal theories out there. One is a criminal legal theory, and therefore a jury must find beyond a shadow of a doubt someone guilty for that person to receive punishment. But in civil, it is the preponderance of the evidence. Now, do you know what the preponderance of the evidence is? It's the scales, right? It's the scale. If the scale slips slightly to one side, then the preponderance of the evidence says this person owes for the breaking of the moral rules or whatever. Okay, so this person therefore owes something for what they did, because it goes in their that's what automobile law, by the way, is all about. If someone is in the state of Texas, it's 50-50 or more. So if you're 50% or more at fault for an accident, then your insurance is going to pay 50% or whatever percent you're at fault for an accident. The preponderance of the evidence. Does more evidence weigh one way or the other? If you're less than 50%, then you don't pay anything. What's going on in America? In the scales of justice? I don't even know how to do a scale.
Good enough.
That's pretty good.
Okay.
Hey, that's good to me. We look like scales.
So is one side or the other? We have 52% to 48%. Does America owe for the loss of innocence?
Yes.
Why? Because it's not weighted upon the non-believers, it's weighted upon the believers.
Okay, so that being applicable, what do we do then? What do we do to make an effort to reverse that?
Well, that's one of
Where do we
the.
go from there?
No, that's a really good point, because that's why we have a voice, and our voice is through a representative government. And we have two things. We pray, for one, but prayer must have feet.
It has to action.
Yeah, and so one, we first have to watch over our families, and we have to do everything within our power to watch over our families, that we do not participate in the blood guiltiness of the land. We have to do everything, and that has to do, it's not just an issue with abortion. It talks about everything. It's the innocence of life, protecting our communities by protecting our families so we are not involved. Second is that what's the next place? Besides, we have individually, we have our families, then we have our communities, and our communities are related to, our number one vote is in two different places. Our participation in the jury system, and then the second place, because by how many people want to be on a jury, right? Okay, how many people try to get out of jury duty?
99%.
People don't. They're like, don't pick me, please don't pick me. I'm too busy. I'm too busy. I'm apathetic to any of this process that's going on. The other thing has to do with the process of making sure we have our voice in the city council. We've got an election coming up right here in Amarillo, making sure that mayor is not pushing death on our city, that our city council is not pushing death on our city, that destroys businesses, destroys people's pocketbooks, as well as being able to preserve our ability to congregate, to gather, and to protect ourselves. It's done on a local level, county, then to state. And we say, well, what do I do? Well, I'll tell you this. I got an immediate response from John Smithy when I contacted him. It's been over a month now since over a particular issue. So they're listening, but the problem is most people are apathetic. And they're neither hot nor cold. They don't care. Just do what you need to do. I just hope you're going to do what I voted for you to do.
Marrying and drinking and going about your business.
Too busy taking care of the worries of life. And then that day of the destruction comes suddenly.
Yeah.
I just read that the other day.
Yeah.
That's what our government wants. They want us to be that way.
Yeah.
Because they don't want us involved.
Yeah.
Because they lose control when we are.
That's what, and there's things that we have to fight. We have to fight stuff. The chemical changes that's in the air from the airplanes and the fluorides in the water. Don't drink tap water. It makes us dull and apathetic. I mean, there's the foods that we eat makes us dull and apathetic. We have to be on top of things. Rick.
So that is 52%, but in one generation, basically our generation, it went from people who was okay with people who were gay or transvestites or anything like that. When we were kids, that was like 70-something%, high 70s, knew that was an abomination to God and was morally wrong and everything. And today it's totally switched around. It's almost 80% that says they should have the right to do this, they should have the right to do this, they should have the right to marry. And it's just totally flipped in one generation.
I think they gave up. Because it's like been an ongoing battle, and after so long, you just get tired of fighting. You're like, they're going to push whatever they want, so just let it be. Just turn the eye and just go on about my business.
Well, I look at my granddaughter and I say, no, I don't want her to live in a place because what happens is it's not just how we see it now and we see rioting in the streets and that type of thing, is that she'll have to be armed if she's allowed to be armed, where protection to survive and not be ever to go out except in a group of people that are in survival. I'm talking like Mad Max. I mean, we have to be so careful. It sounds kind of crazy. Did you know, by the way, side note, Mad Max was set in the year 2021. I Am Legend, you know that movie, I Am Legend, where one survivor of this horrible inoculation thing that went on and everybody became zombies, like murderous zombies. 2021. That's the year it was set.
I Am Legend. He's a bad guy.
Yeah, he's the one that developed it. Yeah. But he was immune. Yeah, Tammy.
On the fluoride, the city of Amarillo does not add fluoride to our water. I have a friend that works there. The water here naturally has fluoride in it. It's natural occurring fluoride. So it's not the additive that is toxic.
Well, now what you have to be careful about is that fluorides are part of the halcyon group, fluorides and bromine and some other things. If your body does not have enough iodine in it, your body will absorb those things, and those things have a negative effect on your health. But if you have iodine in it and your iodine sufficient, then it blocks those poisons. Those are still poisons, and you want to block those things out of your body. Most people don't have enough iodine in their bodies, and that's why there's all sorts of health issues, because they're directly connected to the hormones, and when the hormones fail, then health declines. So very, very important. And I learned something the other day. That orange, the iodine, pure iodine is that orangey, reddish, dark reddish color. If you take some iodine, put a couple drops right here on your forearm, if it disappears within 12 hours, you're iodine deficient. If it's still there after 12 hours, then your body is balanced in iodine.
What was that again? It's like I spaced out for a second. Sorry.
Pure iodine. Yeah, like nascent iodine. Yeah.
Oh, like the kind that you put like on a wound?
Yeah, nascent iodine you can take internally. But yeah, just take iodine, and it's that dark orangey red color, and put it right there on your skin. Yeah, put it on your skin.
Blood is mercurium.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
not
Oh, it's not iodine?
No.
Oh, okay.
It's totally different.
All right, so
I was with you on that. I didn't know this.
Yeah,
Put it on when
As
you're-
kids, you know, they put that on, we
Still
just
there,
called it
then
monkey
you're not-
but we didn't know.
And iodine is.
It burns.
It's exposed to radiation or anything.
it protects the
It'll
town.
kill you.
so
The problem is also that we have to be aware of today, that when we follow Yeshua, we follow the Torah, we will be labeled homophobic,
That's not the right kind.
xenophobic,
You have to get.
racist. You know, everything they're trying to label and to scare people into shutting up.
Yeah.
The quickest way to shut people up is say in an argument, well, you're homophobic,
Mhm.
or you're racist, or you're this, or you're this.
Mhm.
And we just have to stand up and say, you know what? I'm not. I just follow what I'm taught,
Mhm.
and this is an abomination.
Yeah.
It's not because I don't hate you because you're gay.
Mhm.
I hate the sin that is affecting your life, and I pray for you.
It's your actions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not.
I don't
I'm
judge.
a sinner. I'm no better than you are.
Yeah.
You need to stop.
And I'm not there to point and say you're going to hell. I'm there to pray for you and try to lead you.
Yeah.
I have a problem with, when I used to go to conference a lot when I was younger, you got the people standing outside saying, you're gonna burn in hell. That's the wrong message to send to people, because you're automatically fighting against them. You don't want to fight against somebody.
Uh-huh.
You want to show them love and understanding, and that's how you pull people into it. That's how you change people's minds.
You
never
can't
change
win
people's
hate
minds
with hate.
with Fight, yeah.
Yeah.
But Isaiah 9 states from the word of God, if you make yourself stupid, you will remain stupid. So if they're not smart enough to turn it around, then
So, and to kind of conclude, kind of bring this part kind of to a conclusion, but is silence is considered agreement. So in order for us to be Hebrew, which means to stand in opposition to or to cross over, we cannot be silent. So, for example, when I had a conversation with a gentleman, I think I've already mentioned this before, down in Wichita Falls when I was doing a roof, and he was pro shots, especially this new one that's changing people's genetic makeup. I call it genetic mutation therapy. I listened to him, and then I stood in opposition to him. Now, he didn't like it, but if I remained silent, he would have thought I was in agreement with him. And so it's important, but we speak the truth in love. We're not here to, like you were talking about, there's people standing outside the concert. That's the best way to run people off and actually put such a wall up that they will have a difficulty hearing later on. And they, it's like that Westboro Baptist Church up in Kansas that shows up in all these different places. I'm like, they are not following Yeshua. They're following a different Jesus. So,
Well, like the church here in Amarillo that was going to all the haunted houses, trying to protest the haunted houses. Well, I was working concessions that one. It's like, go ahead and show up. It's like, all right, you're saying that they're wrong person from the devil, but let me put it this way: are you keeping these feasts? It states in the Bible you're supposed to be keeping these feasts.
so here's this.
I was ready for them. They never showed up for it when I was working.
Proverbs 3:32. For the perverse one is an abomination to Yahweh, and his secret counsel is with the straight. And Proverbs 11:1. A false scale is an abomination to Yahweh, but a perfect weight is his delight. Perverse in Strong's means twisted, distorted, perverted, or crooked. And these are abominations. Proverbs 15:8. The slaughtering of the wrong ones is an abomination to Yahweh, but the prayer of the straight is his delight. So just some different thoughts. Proverbs 15:26, evil thoughts are an abomination to Yahweh, but pleasant words are clean. That was Proverbs 15:26. Yeah.
Here's one that's 4:26 and 27. It says, level the path for your feet, let all your ways be properly prepared. Then deviate neither right nor left, and keep your foot far from evil.
Yeah. Proverbs 16:5, every proud in heart is an abomination to Yahweh. Hand to hand, he goes not unpunished. So let's see, Proverbs 17:15. It tells us, let's see, I don't have that one written out.
He who justifies the wicked and he who condemns the righteous, both alike are an abomination to Adonai.
Yeah, there you go. Those who declare the wrong right and those who condemn the righteous are both an abomination to Yahweh.
That's what we're at.
Yeah. Yeah. Proverbs 15:8 says that the prayer of the straight or the prayer of the righteous is a delight to Yahweh. In Proverbs 28:9 says, he who turns away his ear from hearing the Torah, even his prayer is an abomination.
One thing I want to say about that, and I was reading, how powerful prayer is for us to do. In Isaiah, God told, I think it's Isaiah or Jeremiah, God told him not to pray for the nation because God knew he would have to intercede. He said, do not pray for these people, because if you do, I'll have to give mercy.
Yeah.
So should we not pray for America then? I'm sorry.
Well,
I kind of
I mean,
think it's a lost cause.
God's mercy is, we can't judge God's mercy. His mercy might be, my mercy is going to be the destruction of America, so.
Sometimes mercy is judgment. Yeah. And especially when you look at it, and I can't remember exactly where the scripture is that it says righteous judgment comes from the north. And so when I think about our current events of what's going on right now, Russia controls the Arctic. Russia has the ability from the Arctic to hit America in under 15 minutes with nuclear weapons, maybe as quickly as 6 minutes. With warheads, with missiles that carry 14 nuclear warheads. Missiles that carry 16 nuclear warheads. So one missile can hit 16 different sites. So
It would just take one hit to turn the United States upside down.
Yeah.
Just one hit.
one hit, yeah. Yep.
And that's something crazy when it was offering Greenland, the purchase of part of Greenland.
Yeah.
It's just trying to control it.
That's actually a very strategic move of what he is wanting to do there. Let's see. Let's go Leviticus 18.
Point out also that with the number of Chicago and Los Angeles class submarines that America has at sea, anytime they can take out 1,600 Russian towns at any time.
The issue now that just came out, and there's been analysis on what Russia has, is that they now have missiles that have no trajectory. And they have unlimited power, so they can be launched from anywhere in the world, and they can travel up to, I think they said 20,000 miles an hour. Impossible to shoot down. So they have no trajectory, so the computers cannot align with them. That's why there was an attack in Israel this week on the city of Damana, I think it was, where the nuclear plant is not too far from there. And the Iron Dome and the Patriot system there cannot pick it up because it was Russian technology and it doesn't have a trajectory. It just shoots, and they can change direction. So it can go up and over and around. and it's missile guided, so it knows it can go exactly and hit its point. It is such high tech. America, I heard Steve Quayle talk about in this conference that's going on this weekend, and he said America is about $41 billion behind in advanced research and development behind Russia. So their technology is way ahead of America's right now. And because America's ballistic system is not hypersonic and it all has trajectories and can be shot down with the S-300 and 400. And on this, I think they got S-500 systems now online in Russia.
Really?
I think it's close. It's really close. Their systems are, that's why they can shoot us down, because all of our stuff has trajectory. So really, but with President Putin, he's always said he's going to do a first strike at any point in time that he feels like the homeland of Russia is under threat. He will strike first.
He's no dummy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely someone to be aware of.
Yeah. So we are living in fact, Steve Quayle was talking that we are in. It wasn't Steve Quayle. It was Dave Hodges.
Well, he's got a lot of good ones this week.
He said we're in DEFCON 1 right now, and nobody knows it. I knew we were in DEFCON 3 earlier this week when the press secretary said they were flying over the White House.
I think there's been video of them flying over the White House.
So you don't fly, it's a no-fly zone. So that air is closed off. But if we as soon as you go to DEFCON 3, they start flying sorties over the White House and the Pentagon every 2 hours. So that was this week. And then when he came out and said DEFCON 1 this week, I was like, I hadn't heard that, but that's very interesting. I can't confirm it. But there's something else here in this verse right here in Leviticus 30. Thus you are to keep my charge, that you do not practice any of the abominable customs which have been practiced before you, so as not to defile yourselves with them. I am Yahweh your Elohim.
Leviticus 18:30.
18, did I say 17? Yeah.
You just said Leviticus 30.
18:30.
I know where you're at.
We're in the Torah portion.
Okay,
That centers it a little bit, right? 18:30.
Yeah, I got that in Leviticus 18, you never said the verse.
But you never said the verse, that's what I was doing.
So that verse is used, or that phrase, whether I am your Elohim or I am Yahweh, or the exact phrase I am Yahweh your Elohim, is used 42 times in 41 verses. And there are 42 stops or departure points from Egypt to the promised land. And there are 42 generations from Abraham to Messiah. So 42 times he says, I am your Elohim. 42 stops. Every stop had with it a trial, but 42 times, 42 generations from Abraham to Messiah, saying, I'm with you in every one of these trials, every one of these things. From when you departed from Egypt, I am with you, and I'll never leave you, and I'll never forsake you. My name is with you. You don't have to take on anybody else's name. You can take on my name. You don't have to bow down to anybody's authority or take their number upon you. They're not going to look out after you. I am Yahweh. I am your Elohim, and I'm the one that is watching over you.
I also heard that after you do the first 10 commandments, that the first set of laws numbered 42. I don't know if that's true or not. I haven't researched it. I was listening to a podcast, and they were saying that not all the laws were given at once. They were saying, as Israel messed up, more laws were given. Like I said, I don't know if it's true, but that's when you said 42, that's what they had mentioned at 42.
Yeah.
Number the first commandments given to them.
Yeah. So these two Torah portions, Achrei Mot and Kedoshim, is talking about what separates us, what makes us to stand in opposition to the world as Hebrews. And And so if you want to look at it this way, that holiness is our defensive shield, individually, interpersonally, and communally, so as a community. And Hebrews 12:14 says, follow shalom with all men and holiness or set apartness, without which no man shall see Yahweh. And Ezekiel 18:4 says, the soul that sinneth, it shall die, which goes along with Romans 6:23, the wages of sin is death. But in Hebrews 12:14, it says, follow peace with all men and holiness, without which no man shall see Yahweh, shall see the Lord. Ezekiel 18:4.
And what was the verse on Hebrews, chapter 12?
14. Yeah. So holiness is our defense. It's our protection. And without it,